So we're going to continue practicing interfaces, abstract classes, and today we're going to add on. So ENUM, does anybody know what that is? Anybody looked it up? So they're very simple. It's like enumeration. Yes, that's what it stands for, ENUM. So they're pretty much your own type, not actually a data type, but your own. You create your own type. So it's very simple. Just like we created interfaces, you go to new. You guys able to see my screen, right? Before we get started, it's IntelliJ. Okay, perfect. So if you right click on the source, go to new, and here you're adding a Java class, and it's kind of like a class, but it's an enum. So you just clicked on this right here. So even if you add a class, and you can always change the keyword class to enum, and that would still work. But enum right here, you select this, and let's do color. Let's do color. So you have enum color, and now you define what goes in there, and there are only fields that actually go into enum. So the enum is very simple, and everything inside enum is capitalized. That is the standard. Let's say color. You have a black color, orange, and then you have. I wonder why black is not. What other color? So black, orange, blue, white, green, and what else? Yeah, so all those are color, right? So those are called enum. So we can use that in our code. Maybe not on a separate line. I have done. Not really sure why it wasn't letting me do it on. Maybe it's a new Java thing, but I have done it on separate lines before. So those are all enums now. So enums, if you wanted to use it in our code. Let's say we have an if statement and we were trying to compare something, or you have a switch statement, right? So how would you write a switch statement? Yeah, maybe I'm thinking of a different language, but each one of them is cool, and you can actually define it on each of the lines. So that would have worked too, but I guess commas work too. Yeah, so this, if you're putting it in a comma, that's pretty much says it's on separate lines, but it's just a syntax, I guess. All right, so now you have color, and let's say you have a switch statement. Does anybody know how to write a switch statement? Or does anybody know what a switch statement is before I start writing it? So switch statement is kind of like an if statement, right? But instead of if keyword, you have a switch statement, and it's a little faster than if statements. And it goes exactly to the case. You have a bunch of cases defined, right? So in this one, let's say you have color keyword. Let's define the color object. I haven't used enum in a long time. So you have a switch statement, and so we have a switch statement, and this switch statement will be based off of what this color is defined as, right? So now you have a switch statement based off this instance of that enum, and we're going to be doing case by case. So we have a first case will be blue. Let's do blue. And if the color is blue, what should we do? So we're going to just print out a system.out.println, and we would say color is, and after each case, we have a break statement, so it doesn't go into the next case. So we have a bunch of cases just like this, and we already have a blue case, so this time I'm going to do a green case, and so we'll do one for black and one for yellow, and print black, and you have a default case. Maybe it's capital. I'm forgetting the syntax for the default case. Let me look that up. Hold on. So it's not the case itself. The default case would be if none of them, it's like an else case, right? So if none of those are true for this one, then we'll execute whatever we have here. So in here, I'll just put in system.out.println and some other. Does that make sense? So let's run it and make sure I did it correctly. If I didn't make any mistake, any syntax errors, I'm gonna run it and see what happens. It should print this line right here, because the color we set it to is blue. So it says color is blue. So if I change the color up here to green, then it'll go in and get the green color. If I change one of the colors to white, the white does not exist in 4 of those options. That means the default case, and it's gonna go into some other color. Yeah, so we have orange and white defined in color right here, orange and white, but we do not have a cases for it. So the switch case is not related to enum. Enum is defined just like this. So enum class is just like this. You can use it in the code any way you want, But using a switch statement makes sense for this one because you have different cases, right? And you have enum defined up here. This may be coming from a different class, right? So we'll do more examples and you'll see how to use enums in your objects and classes. But switch statements are not only restricted to enum. So I know we have orange and white, but I skipped those two cases. You don't have to have those in there. But if you wanted to, you could add it. So you have orange and you have white. And the last case is always the default. So if you write switch statement, don't try to put it like right in the middle somewhere. Last statement is always the default statement. So just like else statement, right? So you have if else, if else, if else, and all the way at the bottom you have an else statement. So this is kind of acts like an else. Everything else is false, then this is true. Same thing goes here. It's checking if this color, whatever you defined it, whatever you're running the switch statement on, if this is equals to true, then run this statement. And then if you don't have a break in here, then it's going to keep going into next cases. So that's why you add a break in each of the cases. Let me show you if you don't have a break. So let's say blue doesn't have a break statement. And I'm trying to, so now it should print the statement and the statement until it finds the break. So once it goes into the case, any of the cases, it just runs all the cases below it, unless it finds the break. Can you call two colors? What do you mean two colors? So with the switch statement, only one of them can be true. So you cannot have, well, I guess technically you could have two, but with the switch statement, you should only have one. That's the standard, I believe. So IntelliJ automated like case blue system. So Colton, I'm not sure what you mean. Can you say that? So it seems to auto add in a break that way. Oh, so even if you remove it, it adds the break automatically. Is that what you're saying, Colton? Oh, so it's auto inserted break. So like I said, Java, it depends on which version of Java you're using. They're making a lot of updates all the time. But because before you had to have break statement in there, just like I showed you, it was going into the next one. Sometimes it doesn't do that. So we cannot use and or in switch statement. So I think you can technically, but the standard I've actually not seen any and or statement with switch. Switch are basically used for one case at a time. That's why it's faster. If you add and or and everything else, then it's kind of like an if and else statements, right? And you're comparing two things, but cases actually make sense. Can't really say I haven't seen it. I have seen it, but it's not standard. So you shouldn't be using and or and switch statements. Switch cases are only for one case at a time. That's why it's fast. So what happens is you're running a switch statement on color, and you define the color right here. So it knows which case to go to right away. So it doesn't go to case 1, then case 2, case 3, case 4. Oh, case 5 is the one you're looking for, then reprint it. It goes directly to case 5 if it's orange. It skips everything else above it. That's why it's fast. So switch statements are actually really useful if you haven't covered that in the 218 class. I kind of want to do one more example of switch statements so you get an idea of. So this is the switch statement on enum, right? So let's do another example. You can use it on any data type that you want. So let's say you have string and string data type name, and that would be, let's do my name, right? And now you can do switch statement, state them on that variable name. And the first case would be my name. And what happens if it's my name? You just say system.out.println, and you just print like the next case to that. And here you would just do system.out. If you had more cases, let's do, and then default doesn't belong. You have a name. Based off of that name, we have 3 switch statements and 1 default. So well, we have 1 switch statement and 3 cases inside that switch statement. So based off of the name, it's going to be picking which case to run. So if you run it now, so we don't have a break statement in any of them, so it's running. So if I change the name without adding to Zach right here, do Zach here. So now it's going to go to case 2, right? So this is the case, line 43. So if I run it now, you see it skipped Usman. It didn't even go to this one. That's why it's faster. It went straight to Zach. even though it ran everything after that because we don't have break statements, but it skipped the first one. And each case should have a break statement and even a default case. We get student because Zach equals Zach. Right? No, so that's what I was trying to show you. So you don't need just a simple example on such statements, right? So you can use it on any data type that you want. You can use it on integer, you can use it on double, string, enum in this case, right here, or anything that you want. You can use the switch statement on that. And what all it's doing is taking this variable right here and it's comparing each case, like name is set to Zach, so it's gonna do this, go to that case right away. So it's not gonna do Zach equals to Usman, false, next one, and Zach equals to Zach. Okay, this is true, go in. No, it goes into that case right away. I love switch statements. I use it at work all the time, but I haven't actually went to work in a long time, so that's why I forgot the syntax. And I actually haven't taught switch statements in any of the courses because I don't think it's, but as a software developer, maybe because it's faster. So let's do examples that includes enum and includes examples abstract classes or interface. So interface and enum working together. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to right here. So define an enum called season with 4 constant values. So how would we do that? So define an enum called season. So what's the first thing we need to do? Create a new class. So we're going to do create a new class, Java class. And in here, we're going to select enum. And it says season. So I'm just going to type in season right here. That's an enum. I'm going to close everything else. So enum, season, and what goes in here? 4 constant values. What are 4 constant values? Fall, winter, spring. Enum, fall, winter, all the springs, all the seasons. The next thing, let's do define an interface called weather with 2 signature methods called temperature. So how would I do that? So define an interface called weather with 2 method signatures. So how would I do that? Create another class. So right click on source, Java class, and it says the name, what's the name for this class? We'll call that weather, and which option should I? So interface right here, I can select that, or even if I select class, like I showed you on Monday, if I select class and hit enter, oh, I don't need a class. I want to change that to interface. I can go and do that here. So I can just change the keyword class to interface, and that would convert it to an interface. So now we'll copy this and paste it here. Instructions, we need to add 2 signature methods called get temperature, get humidity. So how would I do that? Public void get temperature, and the next one, public void get humidity. So it tells you 2 method signatures. So that would be the signature of the 2 methods. It's an interface, and that's all we kind of need in the interface, right? So one thing it doesn't say is like what's the return type and everything, but since this is a get method, that means we are going to be returning something. So for simplicity, I'm going to change that to spring. So the idea here is based off what the what's the season is. We're going to return temperature and we're going to return humidity of that season. So we'll make up all the values as we go. Now we need to define a class called season weather that implements the weather interface and has a season field. So how would I do? What's the first thing I need to do? New class. Add a new class. And what's the name? Seasonal weather. And I'm actually going to paste that here too. And so we did that. And what else do we need to do? That implements weather. What keyword should I be using here? Extend or implement after class? So it's going to be implement, and we're going to be doing implements the interface we just created, which is weather. And as soon as we do that, we get an error. We get an error because why are we getting an error before we actually look at the error? 2 methods from the weather. So we need to import those 2 methods in here and initialize it, and we have to have a body for both of those 2 methods. So if you go in here and click on the red bulb and it says implement methods, and these 2 are the methods we need to implement. If you want to do it automatically, you can do it this way, or you can just copy this and paste it here and create the body for each. We did this. Well, obviously we need to write something in here, but we also have one more requirement that says interface has a season field. What is that? What is a season? Spring season as a member. What do you mean by member? Define a constant season constant from season. Define a constant. Would that be, how would you define a constant? So when they say something like that has a field, right? So remember, it's not a constant or it's not anything else, it's a field. So remember this seasonal weather is object we're trying to create, right? So that this object implements this interface, which is a weather. So now season is a field. How do you define season as a field? So remember season is an enum, right? So it has all these in there. We can define this as a field just like we do it for any other data type. So we can do season and we just call that season. So this is a field now. Season is a field and I set it to private, but this is how it is. This is how you define the field. But you do need to initialize it obviously because remember it's a field inside an object. So to initialize fields inside an object, what do you need? Season is a type of a season, yes. So in this field right here, it could only be 4 things, right? So it could only be defined as 4 things. What 4 things? And these 4 things. We are restricting the user to define the field as those 4 things only. So now remember season is a field inside our object called seasonal weather. How do you initialize this field? Constructor, exactly. So we need a constructor for this object to initialize the fields, and we can do seasonal weather. And when we ask the user for this, and what happens inside the constructor? Yep, so this dot season equals to, I change the name. All it's doing is initializing the. So right now, just make sure everything is working. I'm going to set a return type to empty string so I don't get any red errors right here. And I'm going to go back to the main class and try to create that object. So you have a seasonal weather, let's do winter, and equals to new seasonal weather. And in here we'll do season. So that's how you would pass. Now let's go back and change right here, return to something that actually makes sense. So let's write a switch statement. Defining what the temperature is. So we're not going to be doing like a integer or double value for temperature. Let's define in plain English what the temperature is. So let's say if it's winter, it's cold, right? And if it's fall, it's cool temperature, that kind of thing. And if it's summer, it's hot. And if it's spring, so how would I write a switch statement, or what would this switch statement be based off of? So we're gonna take the return statement out, and I'm gonna write switch statement, and it's gonna be season like this. I'm getting a red. Why am I getting a red line? Remember, it wouldn't be fall. Remember, you use a switch statement on a variable, right? Variable name. So like an instance name or variable name, you don't do it on a class. So season is actually a class right here. If you try to use this season right here, exactly. So the variable name starts with capital lowercase f. So if you use that, then it would work. Because now you're using it on this one, and it is initialized through the constructor, so we can see which case is it going to be. So now the first case we have is fall case. Let's do, and then break state, and then we have spring, and we do return. Spring is kind of like a break statement for this case, and then we have summer and return, and the last one is winter, and the return statement is so sometimes right, yeah, it is actually kind of so we don't have a default case, right? So what if they pass in a season that is not for them? I don't think, because we have an enum, it's never going to be the case, but Java always wants to play safe, and I have a red line right here. What's the default case? It's what if it's none of them? What should you return? So I have to add a default case here, and we're going to do return. I'm getting a red line on this first unreachable. So I'm actually getting the break here as well. Red line. The reason this is happening because remember before we were actually printing it out. What happens at line 14, right? So this is line 14. When you do return, what happens to this switch statement, or what happens to this function? You break out of it, exactly. It ends the loop, or it ends the function, it ends the switch statement. So this statement is kind of redundant. So we already ended, we returned out of it, so we don't need break. That makes sense why we need it for everything else and why don't we need it here. So if you don't have a return statement and we're just printing this out like system.out.println pool, then we need a break statement, otherwise it'll keep running it. The return just stops it, and it just returns this value and stops the function, stops the loop, stops the if statement, stops the switch statement. So that's what's happening here. All right, so let's go to the main and test this out. We have defined as a winter, and we do winter dot get temperature, and we need to print this out, right? Remember, this is so let's run it and see what happens. Nothing happens because remember, this function is actually not, it's returning a string. So we need to print that string out. So now we create an object with string, right? So now if we get the temperature, we get mild. We have an enum class, we have interface class, and we have object class. So let's go and finish this object right here, humidity. So you guys are going to tell me how this is going to work. So let's say you have spring is moderate, spring, and we're going to return the humidity right now before we're returning the temperature. And now we're actually going to return the humidity. So it's moderate, high, low, very low, that kind of. Now, how would I get started in this? Switch on season. So we're going to switch. We only have one variable here in this class, and that's what we've been playing with, which is called season with the lowercase s. And the first case for this would be winter. I'm not really sure why I'm getting this. I thought there was a new way of writing it with an arrow. Yeah, so the arrow didn't work for me. So I haven't seen arrow before. I guess this is a new way of writing this switch statement. They just implemented, I guess, because I haven't seen that one before. Remember, Java actually charges now. So if you develop an app in Java code, you have to pay them a little money. And now they're constantly updating Java library. So this, I haven't seen that one before. Maybe it is old, I don't know, but I haven't seen that one before. So I'm gonna stick to the old version. So keep it consistent. All right, so here we do return. So for winter, let's do humidity is very low. Okay, for summer, let's do humidity is very high. Remember, it's the same thing right here, that it doesn't really matter which order you put them in. It's case by case, so it goes to that case automatically. So even if you have winter up front or fall at the end, the runtime will still be the same. We return spring. Let's do spring is moderate. We do return. We did high, moderate, very low. Let's do low. For the function is still complaining right here. If you look at it, missing a return statement. So I can add a default here. Now come back in here, and we already have an instance defined. So I'm going to do system dot winter dot get humidity is moderate and temperature is mild. So we can actually format this. And let's say we have another seasonal weather, and that's season 1 equals to new seasonal weather, and we define it as an enum. We pass the enum, and this one let's do. And in here we do season 1 dot get temperature, and first one is mild and moderate, and the next one is cold and very. Questions, concerns? So everybody understand how enum works, how we can use that in objects and classes, how we can use them in our own kind of like a data type. You guys think of one example where you would be good to use enum? So yeah, the assignment is actually creating enums, right? So in the real world, you would use enums like if you have an account and you would define checking and saving, and you only want to restrict the user between checking and saving. And enums are mainly used for restricting the user to use what you want them to use. Let's say the season, you only want them to use 4 seasons, right? So they cannot define like summer, spring, winter, fall. I know there are other words, autumn. Let's say if they want to use autumn, you don't want to use them, let them use that. So you're restricting creating anything else. You have to use 4 of these. Sometimes, so if you're creating a bank account and then you only want them checking or saving to pick 2 of those options, you create an enum and you're restricting them between those 2 options. Currency, let's say you're creating like a cash app or some kind of transaction app, and you want to restrict them by only 5 currency that you accept, like Japanese yen, US dollar, and that kind of thing. So you create an enum for that. And how you use enum in your code, we used it very simple way. We used it in a seasoned way. I do have a